Um, we need to talk about Florida for a few moments here. And the reason we need to talk about Florida is the fact that there have been a lot of headlines in the last couple days telling us that Republicans are closing the gap in Florida voting. Republicans have an edge on Democrats. And to an extent, no, they really don't. Actually, I can't even justify the to the extent part there. Here's what's happening right now in the state of Florida. As of yesterday, Democrats still hold about a 300,000 vote advantage over Republicans. Now, that's a pretty significant margin. They have about a 5% margin in total number of votes cast over Republicans. So Democrats are still winning. Yes, Republicans are showing up in greater numbers to vote early, but Democrats absolutely crushed it on the mail-in ballots, and so that's why they hold the edge. So Democrats, again, they have the edge. Early voting numbers are absolutely through the roof down here in Florida, and youth vote, and that's a big one. That's what's getting overlooked in these polls of, oh no, are the Democrats going to be able to pull it off, or is Florida going to be a Republican state? The youth vote, over 250,000 already, is dwarfing what we saw in 2016. And that is a demographic that overwhelmingly goes for the Democrats. Now, here are the two numbers that I think are the most important. And these are not necessarily being reflected in any of these stories about Democrats have the advantage or Republicans have the advantage or whatever. These two numbers right here are going to tell us what's going to happen on Election Day. First and foremost, remember I mentioned the Democrats early voting, Republican early voting. What about the independents, the people with no party affiliation? They make up 20%, over 1 million of the early votes already cast. People who say, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican. 20%. That obviously is a massive percentage, and over 1 million votes, that's more than twice the amount needed to swing any election from the state of Florida in over 20 years. So there you go. We don't know how these people voted. We don't know which way they're leaning. We don't know if these were some of the former felons who were able to pay off their poll taxes and get their right to vote back, because many of them were able to do that. So which way are they going to go? Are they going to vote for the party that consistently tried to strip them of their right to vote? Or are they going to go with the other folks? Who knows? Big mystery, right? I mean, really, we can't predict which way they're going to go. People vote against their own best interests all the time, especially down here in Florida. So we'll have to wait and see. The other statistic that I think is going to play a huge role down here in Florida is the elderly vote. The elderly vote put Trump in the White House in 2016. He was able to convince elderly voters down here in the state of Florida to vote for him. That gave him an edge. That gave him Florida. That led to him going to the White House with the electoral vote. Now, in 2016, Trump held a 17-point advantage among elderly voters in the state of Florida. His handling of the pandemic has now given Joe Biden the lead with elderly voters here in Florida. So what this means is that some of those registered Republicans we're seeing showing up at the poll for early votes, because they're not being asked, who did you vote for? It's just, what party affiliation is this person? That's why it says Republicans have the advantage, not Trump. A lot of these people could be some of these elderly voters who are registered Republicans, but who now no longer support the president and support Joe Biden. So when they go and vote early, it would count as a Republican voting, but it's not a vote for Republicans. That is something we have to keep in mind. Now, having said all of this, I want to make it abundantly clear that Republican trickery, Republican shenanigans are at play here in Florida. We have seen them for 2 years fight the expansion of voting rights for people who had served time in prison. We have already seen this week armed Trump supporters showing up at polling places trying to intimidate voters. Florida is not a lock for either candidate. It is not definitely going to Joe Biden. It is not definitely going to Trump. It is still a toss-up up in the air. I'm just telling you these numbers so that people understand the headlines we're seeing are not necessarily accurate, and they're not accurate in a way that's bad for Trump. Now, that doesn't mean for a second that Biden has this. If anything, I would say Trump still has the advantage because we have a Republican Supreme Court, we have a Republican governor, we have a Republican legislature, we have Republicans in places of power all over the state of Florida that are going to do what they can to give this state's electoral votes to Donald Trump. That is scary. But if there is a decisive victory on Election Day here in the state of Florida, if what I am predicting here is correct, then none of those other things matter. Joe Biden will get it, and there will be nothing that Trump can do to stop that. But if the margins are razor thin and there goes to a recount, buckle up, because that's when things are going to get ugly.